Welcome to Gear Games, and we're going to get started in programming in C#. We're going to assume you already have the IDE installed. And we're going to go from that point. We're going to make a basic command line program. We're going to initialize variables, and then I'm going to do some control flow with those variables. And as we go through that, you're going to learn more and more about some of the basics of programming. Now, just in this block of code here, there's a lot of stuff that makes your mind go crazy if you have no idea about computer programming. So we're going to go over all this. And we're probably going to do it better because we're not going to do what they're doing. We're not going to make it so, like, this isn't the way you learn. This is nightmare. Look, first off, the variables aren't even named, right? So what am I talking about? This code right here. It's very hard to read. And it's on the Microsoft website. And that's the thing is these articles are written by people, right? They can make edits and everything. We could make edits too and just be like, hey, why don't we like use real variables so people don't build bad habits? And a lot of times they do because you teach them that way. So we're starting off here, and it's like, hey, let's find the square root of b times b plus c times c. Well, what is b times b, c times c? I mean, for crying out loud, maybe we learned that in our math class. But to me, that looks like the Pythagorean theorem, right? But none of these indicators give you that idea. Well, then you're just sitting here like, oh, A, B, C, what am I doing here? There's no comments. So why don't we jump into the Visual Studio and start this. So first off, we're going to make a command line program. That way we don't have to worry about the display or anything. And later we can add the display if we need to. So this section here is really, it's just you picking the type of project you want, right? So you do create new project. And in here, you're going to be able to pick from a whole plethora of things. Since this is all about C# today, we want to limit it to C#. We're not going to do all languages because then you get C++, F#, JavaScript, Python, everything, you know, and you know, if that's not what you're learning, it's just a waste right now. And then platforms, we're not going to mess with those. I'm going to do console app. They have a new console app that's like very bare bones. We're probably going to take that and make it less bare bones. But let's just try this out. So we're going to do Twitch code. And then we're going to say, let's just do C# prelim, right? This is just to get you all started. Go with the long-term support framework. Like, if you're a beginner and you're just learning C#, there's no point in messing with this. It's just not going to do anything for you. If you're more of like an intermediate or expert, you'd probably want to know that a little bit, but ultimately it's not that important to you. So first off, this application, it's bare bones. They made it this way. But if you hit this little icon here, you can get back to the way that things used to be. This new way, they're trying to imitate things like Python. And Python's not a bad language or anything, but if you're trying to learn C#, most programs aren't going to be written in a manner using this at companies that you would work for, so you'd be wasting your time. So we're going to go like this. So this is a class. We're going to make it, let's make it public. And then I'm going to add, actually let's leave it internal. This doesn't matter, so don't worry about it. But the namespace, I'm going to add a namespace here. And we're going to call it Twitch streams. How about Gear Games Twitch, right? So that's the namespace. Namespace is just a collection of code that can be referenced. So we're going to put this program in there so it's categorized to start. And now we're going to run this, just so you can see what happens. So to run this program, you would hit this button up here. Oh, look at that. I've got a thing at the top. So what we're going to do, I'm going to jump into, I'm just going to fix something really quick because we got this like bar on the top of the screen blocking the code. And for me, that's that's just not going to be useful for what I'm showing. So I'm going to remove a lot of the clutter on the screen, so you can actually see what I'm doing, because it's not so helpful. Probably have to cut this out, but that's okay. All right, we want to look at this one here. This will only take a little bit. It'll be for your benefit, so let's get this done. So we've got a lot of things we just need to hide. I want to hide this thing. Bye-bye. 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 Nope, it stays. We got this one on the top here. It's not. I'm almost done. Let me see. All right, I got rid of a good amount. That's good enough for now. Stuff on the bottom is not as important. Okay, so check this out. We're going to run this program. This is the typical hello world. This is the first thing you would learn in programming. In C#, they just write it out for you. So here we go. So it's going to print text, and normally this program would actually exit immediately, but since we're doing the debug, it has a thing to automatically not close it. What I can do though to prove that to you is I'm going to right click on the project and do open folder and explore. Okay, and in here we can go to the bin folder, which is binary, and then the debug version, keep going in there. You see this C# prelim, it's going to show up and disappear. So then a way to really get into that would be to navigate to the directory. So I opened up a command prompt. I'm going to do cd and paste the directory name. And then I'm going to, ooh, that's not the directory. I got to get to the D drive. There we go, D drive. Go to the directory. I hope people can read this. Let's make it big. Okay, so we're going to go in here and we're going to run the C# prelim exe. And you'll see the output, but since we're in the command line, it's not going to close right away. So that's just demonstrating that there's kind of an extra bit of things being added to this program when you run it. That's not exactly an important detail for a test or something, but it's one of those things you should be curious about what's happening in your environment when you're programming. So it says C# prelim process exit with code 0. Well, code 0 means there was no errors. Let's see, automatically close. So this is telling you the IDE. So you just read these things. Like, you don't just sit there and ignore them. Maybe for expediency or to not waste your time, you might want to ignore them, but it's important to at least kind of grasp some of that information. All right. So how do I do the Pythagorean theorem, right? So normally what you would do is you'd have variables called width and you'd have variables called height. Now I'm going to show you the Microsoft version of this right here. So the Microsoft version is, you know, very like, this isn't good. This stuff, like, you have a new person coming in and reading the documentation, trying to learn how to program, and this is the type of stuff you throw at them. It's ridiculous, right? Here we go. All right, so I will get to that. And welcome back. Hello, it's Brittany. Long time no stream on my part. So here we got, they were doing a variable of 7, and then they immediately assigned it to b. We're not going to do that. We're going to put in 11 here. And we want to do the Pythagorean theorem. Well, one person would say, hey, why don't you just do this? Well, let's see. We'll do variables. This is just generic whatever. Variable, we'll just do result. And result is equal to math dot square root of b times b, or sorry, that's width times width plus height times height, right? You see how much easier it is to figure out this? So we want the, all right, we can ban Turquoise. What is he doing? It's first time here, and he's literally advertising to me. You have 2 seconds to say something besides advertising. 1, 2. Let's mute him. Mute him. Yeah, let's mute that guy. Can't believe. You're back for 2 seconds and somebody's going over here making a mess. Let's see. I think I can right click and mute. Wasting all my time here. Where am I know what to do. Sorry guys, I'm like talking about something completely different, but we got a guy to ban. I'll let the mods take care of that. Turquoise Slay K is, you know, advertising on my stream and should be banned. Let's get him banned. Okay, so here you should actually be putting something in here that makes sense, right? You should be putting what the variable is. This is the diagonal length, right? But here on Microsoft land, I have to figure out what I'm asking about, right? What are we getting at? I have no idea. So that's just a start here. Is you've got a diagonal length, and you're trying to get that. Well, wouldn't you want to, like, I don't know, reuse this? So then comes the question, well, what's the way to reuse this, right? You would probably want to create a method or something. But to start, let's assume the basics here. To start, what is an integer? It's a number. And it has a maximum and a minimum value, right? It has a range. Luckily, that range is pretty long. We don't need to go into the exact details. It's pretty big number. But then you can go and upgrade the variable types as you need to. An integer, or int, does not have decimals. If you try to put decimal points, it will say you've got to cast it. It's not a valid type. So you don't want to do that. All right. So you're starting to program, you're trying to learn stuff, and you don't know if you've made any results, right? Because the whole point of this one is, what are you doing? You're trying to learn how to program. You're trying to get started quick. Well, you've already got your command line like program. You already got it printing output. You actually can pass arguments to it. So what we could do is take that on, right? I want to write a program. Here we go. I want to write a program that finds the length of a diagonal, and I input the width and the height. That's your prompt. Okay, well, let's do it. Okay, so we need to input 2 variables. They're going to come in as strings. And we can just do this. Args, variable 1, arrays start at 0. This is a string array. When you have a command line program, the args come in through here as a string array. So we're going to do arg0, and the thing is it's coming in as a string, so you have to parse it. We're going to start out kind of like the worst way of doing this, and then we'll build upon it in further videos. So we're going to just do a direct parse of the input arguments and watch what happens when we do that. We also need to print out the outputs. So console.writeLine, and I'm going to use this $sign and 2 quotes like that. So this is syntactical sugar for string format and a few other things. And so what it does is it makes it easier for you to print out text or make strings that are formatted without having to go into too much detail. I can go over the details of this if you would like. Just ask and we'll go for that. All right. So here we go. I'm going to say width, and I'm going to print out the height, and then here we're going to do width, and then we're going to say diagonal length. Diagonal length, like that. So when we run this program, it's just going to crash because it has no input variables. So you need to provide an input variables. Well, how do I test the program? Well, you could check to see if these have values and just put in the defaults for the purpose of testing. That is one way to go about it. The other way is to do what we did earlier. We have the command line or the command prompt open, and we just run the program and we get an exception. Oh no. Well, let's not stop there, right? We are supposed to pass in command arguments. So let's do that. Let's do 2 and 5, and then I'm going to press enter. So you put a space between them. They're delimited by spaces generally. Boom. We got width, height, diagonal length, bam. So let's see. So that's 2 times 2 times 2, 5 times 5, 29. The square root of 29. So let's see. What's the square root of 29? Is our output. Great. So we did it. We have the diagonal. We have a program that gets the diagonal. It uses a method. Nope, it doesn't. So we need to make this easier, right? So what have I done? I've kind of like made a few mistakes here. I fixed them. I'm writing out the program. Oh, let's find the diagonal of these other things. And 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. Just kind of mix this up a little bit, right? And then we're basically gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. We got 4 of them. And if anything's jumping out to you as odd or interesting, just shout out and I can tell you more about it, because I do use some of the advanced IDE features, and they help speed me up. All right, we're going to run this, and so I don't want to get the error, so I'm just going to build. Now there's a lot going on here. Just do it, try it out, see what happens. So I built it, and now I'm going to go back to the command prompt. I'm going to run that thing again, and now I've got width, height, diagonal length. I got a few other outputs from those new variables that I added. So what am I doing now? I'm going to look at my code and ask myself a question like, what am I doing? I'm doing a lot of work here. Like, I've got this, and I'm copying and pasting it everywhere. I should make a function out of this. Well, there's a few ways you can do that. One, you can type it out. But what is a function? A function is basically in mathematics, you've learned about, you gotta know a little bit about math, right? You learned about fx, x plus 2, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, in functions and graphs, I suppose is what it's called. And then you get something like that. So then you'd say f1 is actually equal to 3, things like that. Well, it's kind of the same thing, right? So let me write one out. Public double, which is the return type, the value I'm going to return, diagonal length, and then I'm going to do int width, int height. Name those variables. And then I'm going to take this equation here, this equation, and I'm going to return it. All right, there we go. That's one way of solving it. The other way, you could try to use some of the features of the IDE. So the IDE has some features that are really useful for this type of thing, and they're called refactoring tools or something like that. Let me find it. Refactor. You can do extract method. The hotkey for it, or the macro, is Control-R and M. So if I was like using my keyboard only, I go like this and I do Control-R, Control-M. And now it asks me for the name of the method. Okay, well, I want a method that gets me the diagonal, right? And bam, it's here. It's the same method too, right? What the refactor does is it figures out what your return type is based off of the code you highlight, and it tries to make its best guess, which is super useful for anyone who's trying to get into programming and wanting to try to figure that out. Refactoring is basically taking one piece of code, changing the way it's written to be easier to understand while not losing the functionality. So you need to maintain the existing functionality. Okay, so we're not going to use the generated one because I want to demonstrate something about this program. Okay, so I have my method, I'm trying to use it, and it complains. It's complaining to me because it is actually written as a local, like a proper, like a method on a class. But we haven't instantiated a class and use it. We're not doing that. We're running here in the top level space. So I would actually have to do something like this. Program equals new program, right? And now I have a program object. And then I'd have to do program diagonal length. But here's the thing. Nothing about my program matters to this method. It just has inputs. So it's more of a high-level tool. Well, why can't I access it? I want to access it. Well, we can make it a global method. By just putting here this modifier, we make it static, so you can get to it anywhere. All right, so back to our original topic. What are we doing? We're diving in, we're just doing stuff. We're messing around, we're seeing the new things. If you're trying to learn programming by memorization, you'll never learn it. You'll always be a little less good than other people who work through stuff and intuit it after a while. So let me show you something. This is what we started with, right? So I'm gonna keep a comment down here of the code we started with so you can kind of see it. And then I'm gonna show you how instead of doing this 1 times 1 plus 1, because we've already pushed that to the method, I actually can do something a lot simpler. I can do, so this is width 1, height 2. Diagonal length 1, 2. Look at that. Diagonal length 3, 4. Look at that. Diagonal length. This one's actually width 4, right? Now if you type out what I have here exactly the way I have it, your code will compile. If you get some weird squiggly lines, you might have an error and you might want to try to figure out, like it does help you. Like if you sit here and you're like, oh man, this doesn't work, it'll try to help you. It'll tell you like, oh, you might need to do that, and it'll fix it. So you see the difference here? I don't have duplicate code anymore, right? So we've eliminated the duplicate code. And that's all a quick and easy task. So now let me show you something. I'm going to rebuild the project or build the solution. So I'm building it. And now I have the new code here. I'm going to run it and watch. We're going to get the same outputs. Exact same outputs. Except now it's encapsulated, contained within, rather, this method here. All right, guys. So that's the first lesson. Just dive in, right? If you're going to learn how to program and you're going to learn how to program in C#, just dive in, right? Now this seems like a lot and you may have more questions. You can post those questions in the comment section, or if you're here live with us, just ask in the chat and we'll answer them. All right. Well, thanks for being here for this one.